Recently I was talking a little bit about the concept of stalled century. Now it's, I mean, that's been used for a couple of different things, but what I relate it to mostly is the fact that it's very hard to define decades anymore. And it's probably easier for an elderly person like myself to look back at the decades and be able to find these cultural markers, even in popular cultural markers. Like when I think about the 50s, I think about like music and fashion stuff. I think about like Elvis Presley or leather jackets and slick back hair and certain kind of cars and happy days, you know. And when I think about the 60s, I think about mods and free love and the hippie movement and all that stuff, Haight-Ashbury, experimentation with LSD, civil unrest, the you know, different movements around war and civil and whatever the fuck, you know what I'm saying? People in the streets getting mad about stuff. And then the 70s, bell bottoms and disco and heroin, beige. The 80s, you know, being pseudo-futuristic, new wave and bright neon colors. And the 90s, like grunge, darker granola type patterns. Other fuck, hip hop, I guess, gangster rap, pogs. There are certain cultural markers that are in each decade. Once you get to the first decade of the new century, it kind of becomes a mishmash. Like you could look at an episode of a TV show and it'll have like a family's house, and the living room might not look all that different than one now. Like there isn't anything, there's not these markers that signify it, putting it for a certain time. People kind of look the same. I think someone was using the example of the TV show The Office, the one with the Alan Scott one, not Alan Scott, what the fuck is it, you know what I'm saying, Brick Matthews, his version, where like if you looked at that Office, and those were in the early 2000s, you look at an Office now, it's not all that different, you know, the clothing, the hairstyles, the, you know, the music to some degree is all the same too, it's just a mishmash of different things. And I attribute a lot of that kind of stuff, that frozen momentum to 9/11. Oh, I just said it a lot, whatever. 3/11 was an inside job. I don't think it matters if I say the words or not, because I'm not like fucking monetized or anything. I don't know why people avoid certain things. Well, just to not have the bad word counter, I guess, tick up on you. I don't know. But yeah, that was what happened there was spellcraft. It was a ritual, with a ceremony. A lot of spells were involved in that, more than one, many. And it kind of changed time. It changed a lot of things. Now, at the same time that's happening, you have the internet. And I think I always kind of forget about that. And the internet fragments things quite a bit. Just thinking about music. Like, the end of the 1990s was the last time there was really any kind of overall musical movement. You had the electronic music kind of thing coming in. Bands like Prodigy and Fatboy Slim, Chemical Brothers, they're supposed to be a new thing, you know, after grunge. And then that didn't really go over too well, or as big as some of the earlier musical movements, you know, whether you had punk rock or hair metal. You know, every decade had their kind of music. But when you get into the 2000s, you don't have that anymore. You don't, because a lot of it too is media has changed. I know, man. The media, old media, was a lot easier to dictate things. Like, especially, going back to music is an easy example. When you had like a TV, a radio, and like magazines, it was kind of easy to dictate like what the new sound was going to be, what people were going to be listening to. Like there's artists today who are very popular who I wouldn't know their music at all, which would be impossible for someone in the 90s. You knew it, even if you didn't like it, you know it sounded like, because there's so few outlets. And the internet has created a scenario where you can live in your own musical bubble. The only people in my bubble, the musicians I like, the music I like to listen to, and I have no idea what's going on in all these other genres. Everybody kind of does that now. So it's fragmented to a point. Of course, you still have popular artists, that cross over to larger groups like Taylor Swift or whatever, but there's no longer a musical kind of movement. Like in the early 90s, bands like Depeche Mode had a hard time because synthesizers and keyboards were deemed passé. So they had to sort of add guitar and go for that more grungy kind of thing. Dave Gahan had to grow a beard. Just things would change. Things would come out of favor. You couldn't do certain types of music at certain times, or you'd be wildly out of step and just look kind of like you were left behind. Now it's not like that. Every genre can thrive on its own, in its own space. I mean, everything. And that's because the internet allowed these things to be splintered up. So maybe in the same way, 311 was definitely a big change there as far as stalling. And there's a lot more other aspects to this, like things that just seem to have frozen. When you talk about entertainment, you talk about like Hollywood and people that make movies. It's just sequels or it's rehashes of things and nothing new. It's something like that. There's nothing that defines the early 2000s to me, or the 2010s. Like, what did people like to wear in the 2010s? I don't know. It's the same fucking things they wear now. It's not like you can look at the 70s and go, people wore bell bottoms or whatever. There isn't that anymore. Where am I going, by the way? Because I'm not going to Ross because it's too late. Where are any of us going, really, if you think about it? I think we could all ask that question. Where are we going? But for me, it's like literally, where am I going? Like, where am I walking to? I thought I had I know what I'm doing. I'm buying incense, but the 7-0 store about the incense wasn't open. There was a sign at the door that said 5 minutes. So I'm like, oh, okay, I'll go for a walk and come back. And my fucking shoes just are made for walking at Ross. And that's just what they did. That looks nice up there. I didn't notice. I don't go up to Kalakaua that much anymore. Let's take a walk up there. I do like to keep these short now, but I don't know. I guess it's not going to be a short one. Yeah, so I think those two things together create that situation. It's kind of weird though, like when I'm thinking of it, like, and I know other people notice it too, that sections of time are not as easily defined, or in this case, decades, They can't really define what one looks like or what one feels like. Musically, fashion, otherwise, Let me get through this here, hold on. I'm such a paranoid freak. Whenever I'm standing at a light, waiting to cross, I always think, where's my strong side? My right side? So I can put my leg back. So like what you do when you're gonna fight someone, so you don't get tipped over. No one's coming up behind me. You never know though, if that happen, Whatever happened there that day, or with the internet or all these other things that coalesce to create this sort of feeling of displacement in time, it really is hard to get a hold on the time that's gone by. I just don't feel, I mean, I used to feel different. And it could be because I was younger or whatever, but things seem very static. Like I don't, you know, I cast my mind back even to 2010. Like how much has really changed in my immediate environment and with myself, you know? I don't know. It's weird. It seems like everything's kind of stalled out. Like it's kind of been this way for a while. The only thing that's really changed are the devices. You know, the ubiquity of having this in your hand or in your pocket at all times. It's really, we don't make any big technology leaps and bounds like we used to. I mean, you think every decade was new inventions, you know? In the 80s you had the microwave, the VCR, just like household appliance things, you know, and you don't really have that anymore. The only upgrades that happen are in the device. Well, they don't want you to own anything anyway. That's a whole another weird thing too, how they got people into that. I fell right into it too. I used to be a collector of music, you know, as a music nut. I had all this stuff many times. Bought it all different formats. It was a slow thing for me. Like, I remember Rick Rubin in the 90s talking about the future of the music business, and he's like a, I don't know, he's a magic guy for sure. He was saying that back in the 90s, he's like, yeah, someday, instead of having your record collection, you'll have something like a component in your house, like a stereo or a satellite radio or something, where instead of having all the actual albums separately in your house, you'd have your choice of every album ever recorded, and you just pay like a monthly fee to a company. And I remember thinking, that sucks. I like to see my collection. I like to look at, you know, the album covers and see the different, you know, things with the bands I like. Well, then in the early 2000s came iTunes. And you could still, and I started doing that, where I'd buy like, you know, tracks or full albums, download them into folders, and then you had them on your iPad, your whatever device, and you could also look at it on your computer. And it still had all the album covers, and you could still flip through it and look at it. I remember the early iTunes, they had this really nice thing that you'd put on your screen of your PC or your whatever the fuck Apple you use, and it would flip through it like a jukebox, the full album covers. So it was still kind of like having a collection there. And now that we're in streaming, right, I can still like go to like Slayer, and all their albums are right there, and I can still look at the album covers and what years they came out, and all. So it's almost like having it, except I don't have anything. You know, that's what they've done with music is what they want to do with everything, you know? Just how it is. How you doing? Hang on a second. I just ran into my Mossad neighbor. So I walked with her to Ross. I think she wanted me to go in there, and she was looking for a blanket, but Ross is kind of crazy at night. I gotta do Ross before the sun goes down. At night, this is too hectic. I couldn't do that, especially with another person. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if she's Mossad. All I know is she says she works for the Israeli military still. And she's always making trips over there and stuff. I was asking her how it was the last time she went. She was telling me about the weather. Sometimes we talk about like political stuff. I only see her like once in a while. She lives in my building, and sometimes like she'll be out back smoking with her little dog. And that's why I usually run into her. I of course play like I don't know anything, you know. One time she was talking about Israel, and she just came back from there, and she was like upset about something. I was like, yeah, because it was when the Gaza thing was first kicking off, and I'm like, yeah, what's must be kind of crazy over there right now, right? And she was like, your government, you know, they tell you all stuff that's not true, and She's kind of hard to understand sometimes because she's got a very thick accent. But yeah, and I'd like to, you know, I'd like to get more information, but you know, I don't want to pry. We end up just talking about stupid shit. So I was almost home and I ran into her, and I just walked with her all the way back there to Target. But yeah, she's cool. Now, is she my Mossad handler? Yeah, probably. But, you know, a lot of my neighbors are handlers. Wow, this looks nice. Wow, they kind of did that. That's the way they did that. That's always been there, all that stuff. But it's usually jammed all up into a corner. I think they just started doing that at night recently. Is this another just walk around the neighborhood with no point to anything? No, I had a point. What the fuck are we talking about? Oh, stalled sentry. Yeah. Well, that's settled science. I think we figured that whole fucking thing out. And now I gotta go buy incense. That's it. That's it. Nothing else exciting going on. If anything exciting does happen, I'll always I'll whip my shit out and be sure to get it. Until then, thanks for dropping in, and until next time, don't blame the teacher, blame the school.